Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where every week a few people get together with their randomly designed, randomly created story elements, combine them together into something truly unique, a one-of-a-kind thing. I'm, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
I'm Isaac.
And we are here to tell you a story. How you guys doing today?
All right.
Great. I had wild card, so I'm not going to go first.
Okay, I'm Hero.
And I'm Villian.
Great. Well, you guys get to decide who gets to go first.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Great.
We'll be like Star Wars and introduce the bad guys first.
All right.
Okay, so my villain is not an actual person. It's called the Undone, and it's a mind control infection that makes you undo things, to the highest understanding you have. So if you're like a toddler, then it makes you just break things and not grow up. But if you're like a nuclear scientist, then it makes you try to like undo reality. It basically takes over. It's like an infection in your brain, and it takes over your mind and makes you undo things.
Right.
Inspired by that real virus that you can get that makes you love cats.
Love cats?
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's Tonoxapalanametics. I can't say the word. You can look it up. It's known. It's basically like will make you a crazy cat lady.
How fun.
Yeah.
Is it it's a virus?
Yeah, the cat one is a virus. Yeah.
I'm going to give it to my wife who is allergic and see what that happens.
So how did this mind control infection, how did this get started? Was this like a sinister plot by an evildoer, or?
I don't think it was a sinister plot. It was probably there was probably a atom size break in reality, and this is like some type of substance that exists in between realities. You know, it's like a barrier to keep realities apart or something. I don't know. I almost also think of it like it could, like if it lives in the human body, then it would need like 95 to 98 degrees and whatever. I also think of it like it could be even like a fungus or something that actually can grow.
Right.
But I think maybe just some of it got in through like a tear in reality. Maybe, the whatever that collider thing is that they have.
The particle accelerator?
Yeah, where they're smashing particles together in a very
create a small black
terrifying
hole.
way.
Yeah. It's fine. Nothing bad ever happened when particles accelerated towards each other at great speed.
So for example, a professional baseball player that gets infected, how would it manifest? Like, what would be something that would happen?
Man, okay, so professional baseball player. Well, I guess I don't know enough about baseball.
Okay, well, I'm trying to picture how this like the guy that handles the controls for a lock that raises a ship up to a level so they can go into the next, part of the journey. Would he just screw it up?
Because it doesn't turn you into a drooling idiot or anything.
No, it doesn't turn you into a drooling idiot, but it would take whatever you have focused your thought and your understanding on,
right,
and make you want to disassemble that thing. So maybe
unbuild a house, take apart a chair.
Well, yeah,
deconstruct a car.
It would make you want to unbuild a house, but it would also make you want to be homeless and make everyone else stop using houses. Because it's like trying to break reality. It's trying to reverse reality too.
So how far has this gotten? Did they know? Did they have an epicenter? Are there uninfected people on the job trying to figure out, hey, something's happening here, or is it just society kind of breaking down?
I know who the hero is. It's Bob.
Bob the
Builder.
Oh, well, it's really funny. My hero, his name is Reginald Mason from a long line of Masons, and he could well be a builder. And I just had a kind of a generic kind of a thing that could fit into a lot of different storylines. But anyway, Reggie he's fit, 30s. He's got an engaging personality. He's quick to see what needs doing in a crisis. He's strong as an ox. There are stories of feats of strength in crisis rescue situations. He'll just take command in the midst of a confusion, and then he's got some remarkable remarkable skills personally. He can smell a lie.
Yeah.
And amazingly empathetic. He just knows what you are feeling. He will meet insecurity with encouragement. He'll meet fear with courage. He'll meet discouragement with hope. He's a kind of a guy like if the levee breaks and there's people stranded and he says, okay, guys, this is what we're going to have to do. So he is on this. He's one of these people and he just rises to a situation. He's cool in a crisis. And he's worked in the building trades his whole life, but now, facing the unbuilders.
So I have this interesting concept, right? Do you know what antimatter is?
Yeah. Well, no.
No,
I know about
not really.
I don't know what antimatter is. I don't believe anybody who
Actually knows what antimatter is. Yeah.
Right.
Antimatter is essentially matter that is traveling the opposite in time, right? So when some things travel one way, as in getting older, antimatter travels the opposite way, right? And they can combine together. Like if two things combine together, one traveling one way and one traveling the other way, in a lot of ways, like a sound wave, they can cancel each other out. And I think that this Mason, his name is Mason?
Yep.
This Mason, because he has the touch of a builder, in essence, his kind of life force cancels out this. And it's not just anyone who's a builder, right? You have to be a specific, maybe it's because he's from a long line of builders, that the building idea and culture has been cultivated in him enough that he kind of, he can't be infected because in his hand and in his lineage, too many things have been put together.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So as much as the virus or the disaster or the unmake would want to sort of have him disassemble all of his accomplishments, they're too big. There's just too many, Dad built that farm. Dad built that barn. Yeah, that bridge, Dad helped with that. Grandpa helped with that one. That tower, yep, great-grandpa put that tower together. There's just too much. It's like there's not a way for him to be able to do that. And that is what kind of gives him an edge, I think, and what turns him into the hero, being able to kind of come against this work of destruction, which seems to kind of worm its way in. I've been thinking, what that makes me think of, Isaac? I've been reading the Dark Tower series. It makes me think of a thinny.
Yeah, it does.
Just like a soft break in all the world that is constantly grinding away. Slow most of the time, fast other times, but slow most of the time. Grinding away at the world, just causing everything to break down and slowly disappear, which is really irritating because Thinny was going to be my random insert, but no, I had wild card. So Thinny was going to be my wild card, but you basically said what a Thinny is.
Yeah, it's like it's a Thinny, but in like an infection form and not as like a static just break.
Yeah, it like gets into your brain and like makes you carry out its sort of creative designs.
That's where they come from. That's where it comes from. It comes from listening to a Thinny, like getting too close and listening to it, and because that sound in the Dark Tower series, there's that sound that's associated with the Thinny, like listening to that, and it like basically plants this unmaking in your brain.
Right. Because one of the things I found that was most terrifying about when Stephen King was describing the Thinny is that the exposure to the Thinny is not a cumulative thing. It doesn't ever become a drone in the background.
Oh, yeah.
The closer you get, it gets worse and you never get used to it.
That's how I feel about getting burned. Like when you get a burn, you can't just
ignore it.
It's always at the forefront. If you get like cut or you like are hurting in another way, you can like distract yourself. Yeah.
Like a bee sting. I can kind of ignore a bee sting.
Right.
It like hurts for a minute. And you're like, oh gosh. But then you kind of like, okay, well, I'm just going to like, if I just think about it for a little bit, it's like, well, this is kind of like a mosquito bite. And then it, can kind of fade away where this just doesn't. So how does the hero perform his heroic function then?
Well, he'll be in a situation and he'll observe this fraying of reality, right? It's like, and he will stem the tide. He'll figure out, okay, what do we got to do? This levee looks like it's about to break, and we've had a lot of, I'm going to bring in the front end loader and we're going to shore it up,
I think that it should be set in a place where it's like they're going out, like let's say like a levee or something, but it's away from civilization. So it's like going to North Dakota. So he has like there's like a group of like 100 workers, different type of construction people, electricians, a whole bunch of different people out in the middle of nowhere working on some infrastructure pipeline thing, and everyone starts getting hit by the undoing.
Right.
And he's not affected by it. So you kind of have like you have like this everyone's going crazy and he's the only one that is sane kind of scenario. Like the idea in my head was like a cabin in the woods or an Evil Dead scenario where everyone's going mad around one person who's sane and has to deal with them.
Well, the first thing that Reggie does is he breaks out the hazmat suits, and he gets, as soon as he ascertains that somebody has not yet been infected, they suit up because he doesn't know what this is, and he's been on the line to CDC, and somebody finally answers the phone, and they say that they've got some of the lab people are like trying to let loose all of the contained plagues and everything,
Yeah.
I mean, CDC is not a place you want to be when this infection hits because it just talk about making things worse.
Yeah, talk about undoing things.
Yeah. Like
he's trying to tell them. He's trying to tell them the masks aren't working. And they're like, just put 2 on then.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I have the kind of picture maybe that people think that the enemy is one thing, where like it's kind of a confused set of situations where you think that the villain is one thing or another thing, and the villain never ends up being who you think it is. It's like, oh, the villain is like this security guard guy,
right.
Or oh, he's like the town sheriff, or oh, he's like the head of the military, the head of this base. But then in each one, they kind of find this, how do you test for this thing? Is it just like a standard, you can just like test for if the person has a viral load, or you just wait for them to like cause destruction and break things? Because you think about that in like children, it wouldn't be that big a deal because children are pretty much, especially little boys, are pretty much set at like destruction anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in like, if it's a little boy, you mostly need to protect them and the people around them, but that's not as difficult. That's not that difficult. It gets much more destructive the older the person gets.
Maybe it's to like detect it, you would have to have some type of like probably brain scan, and see that, oh, there's something, the brain scan is completely unusual, weird.
Right.
Maybe something is firing like crazy that is only supposed to be firing once in a while,
Yeah, maybe they find that like the fight and the flight are being activated at the same time. They're like, the person is in both fight and flight mode.
Oh, yeah.
As they try to basically as their brain is trying to turn itself inside out, it's both running away and fighting itself at the same time, so you're talking increased, stress levels, general, increased stress, adrenaline, people's like just their bodies just kind of going up and down and crazy.
Yeah. And I think maybe for the story wise, you could add this in there where it was like, it seems like it might reset or wake you up if you got hit on the head, or if you had like a full 8 hours sleep or something, like it would reduce the grip that it has on your brain.
If you had a full 8 hours of what? Sleep?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if you were like hit on the head, something that was really jarring.
Some like cognitive reset.
Yeah, and there'll be also like isolated environments where this isn't happening. Like for example, aboard a nuclear submarine. Where they haven't been infected and they don't have outside contact. But how is this spreading like a virus, or how? This is the thing that where are we at in the story? Has someone, is like their news reports going out, and then the news, like the broadcaster would just go off the air because the engineering staff just undid all their stuff,
Yeah, I guess.
And then you have You'd also have another person who the mason meets at some point in time, and this guy has he in the back of his van. He has all these famous paintings because he was working at the museum when people started to go crazy. But because he has dedicated his life to understanding all of these things, he, in the same way, is as immune as the Mason is, right? And when he saw, the people going through and slashing these paintings and ripping them up, he's got like the Mona Lisa and like some Van Goghs just like rolled up, like cut out of their frames and just like stuffed in the back of his van because he's like, I gotta save these, because that's another thing that's happening is everyone is deleting and destroying all knowledge.
Yeah.
So part of me is thinking that maybe this thing was created and contained at some point, but then a cult basically that wants to reset the world reinfected themselves and then are spreading it throughout the whole world.
Or maybe it was
I'm trying to think of a thing that happened in history that could, instead of being what we know it as, could be this thing happening.
The French Revolution.
Dude, French Revolution. Part of it, for sure.
Yeah, where it was just literally unmaking.
Night of the Long Knives. The Cultural Revolution in China,
Crystal Knock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of these were little places where, it was so far ago, it could be what gave the reason why God made the flood. It could be the Tower. It could be in some part the Tower of Babel.
Right.
Right. I'm trying to think of. I was thinking Black Plague. The bubonic plague could be part of it. Just these times where like great upheaval and chaos happened. Were parts where maybe this cult has been trying to kind of spread it throughout the world. Or
Chernobyl.
Or maybe, okay, what about this? What if it's not a cult? What if it is thinnies and they've been, like by God, been covered or cut off from us, or we've discovered it and cut it off, but we've never discovered the one that was, here in America. But then someone went out to work on some pipeline and discovered it and then started just dismantling a whole bunch of infrastructure that's there.
Right.
And then ended up, leaving or like dying or something, so then, so the hero and this huge team goes up there to clean up like this huge oil spill, to fix the pipeline, and then that's when they come across the thinny that's there.
Right. So, okay, here's an interesting theory. This doesn't work with the thinnies in the Dark Tower series or in Stephen King's works, but this kind of works in this kind of idea of a thinny. So the thing about the Mason is that his family, he can trace back to the fact that his family built cathedrals, right?
Where this
a long time ago. And what they would do, he likes to imagine that his family, were consulted on the Great Wall of China and stuff like that. But basically what would happen is the world would start to break down. A thinny would come and start to spread its sickness of breakdown. And then what would they do is they would get together and they would commission someone, most of the time a mason, because stone was worked for a long time, and he would go in and he was immune to this, and he would build up a solid foundation of reality around this thing, right?
Yep.
And he would build. That's why they built these huge cathedrals. That's the pyramids, the Great Wall of China. Any famous building that's large and made of stone, is a result of this reaction. It was like it's what humanity had to get to in order to they had to get someone who could do this. And soon it became a thing, but his great grandfather did this or patched something, and it was really important, but it hasn't happened for a couple of generations. And so while he's kind of started to stray a little bit away from the really solid mason techniques and stuff like that, and just kind of straying into more general construction, But then in this kind of adventure of going up there and he has to create something, essentially, is what I'm thinking. Some structure there,
Yeah.
And they forget how to not forget, but they like unmake how to use tools and stuff like that. And so they literally have to like start cutting out a quarry, right? Or start, making bricks, and they just start making bricks. And he like slowly but surely like builds this foundation around the thinny, and who knows how long that takes in the scope of the story. But the idea is he kind of rediscovers the fact, and maybe at some point he has to confront. I really like, spoilers for Wheel of Time. I really like how in the last book of Wheel of Time, when Rand finally goes into the
boar
and meets the Shaitan,
Yeah.
like meets the Dark One. The Dark One doesn't call him Randall Thor. The Dark One doesn't call him Louis Theron Telamon. The Dark One just calls him adversary, right?
Yeah.
Just the one in whom I am adverse. That the thinny kind of talks to him as well as it tries to needle its way in, and that same kind of confrontation happens where it recognizes that here he is, the one who is putting him to rest, the one who, not putting him to rest, because you can't get rid of it. You really just kind of surround it
It's containment.
Yeah, it's containment.
Right. And resistance.
Yeah, because you think about it, you not only do you want to create something that's really strong and has a good foundation and is really based in reality, but even more so if you create a place like a church where people come to like trust and believe in something.
It's like that, the Pillars of the Earth series, it's kind of basically centered around the building of and the repairing of and the maintaining this great cathedral from the 12th century and then in the 14th century and then in the 16th century. And it's like this family, the traces back through the whole thing,
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking of when I was thinking about that but like, imagine if they'd been doing it for thousands of years, always being called upon to when the time is necessary, come and sort of fill in the gaps of reality.
I have this while you were talking about that, I had this vision of like, he tries, what's the main character's name? What's the hero's name?
Reginald Mason. Reggie Mason.
Where Reginald like tries all of this stuff, but it's not working, and everyone who's been helping him has like succumbed, and so he goes to the epicenter, ground zero, as a last ditch effort that maybe he'll figure something out. He can't, and it's like and it's like a stone quarry, and there's these huge slabs of stone there, and so it's just like this long, painful, drawn out, the thing like trying to get him to agree and to unmake, but he just has a hammer and a chisel, and he just starts, he's not a mason anymore,
right?
But it's like it's in his blood, and he can't like make an amazing sculpture, but he can just hammer in these huge slabs of stone, just hammer the 10 Commandments in,
Yeah.
And that's it just yeah. It makes me think of Jesus in the desert being tempted by Satan. Like it's kind of like this fever dream of a story that seems more like a fairy tale than like an actual story, because it's like weird and kind of random and
right. I like that. I think that's good. Do you have anything more you want to add to that, Reed?
No, I'm there. That's good.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better. If you like this episode, I want to hear about it. Email me at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com. I will personally answer your emails. If you want to instead at me on Twitter, I'm on Twitter @GetsBettercast. If you thought that this episode could have been better, maybe we should have came up with a name of someone else other than just the hero. That's always a good one. Maybe there should have been like a gunfight. I don't know. I've been reading lots of Dark Tower, so there's just lots of gunslingers in that. So that's why I'm thinking of gunfights.
Or 2 gunfights.
If you want to hear Isaac more on these, I would say just wait. It gets better.